Good morning, Heartland. It's me, Granny Cisco. I'm filling in for Mrs. Cisco this week to read you our weighty word of the week. And this week we are on the letter G. All right. There we go. Dr. Embridge was new in town. Fresh out of medical school, he had come to Last Breath, Minnesota to replace Dr. Gerald Chagrin, who had practiced medicine in that town for 50 years. His first morning in Last Breath, the new doctor went to introduce himself to Dr. Chagrin. "What's the most common complaint?" asked Dr. Embridge. "Aching bones," answered Dr. Chagrin. When the minds gave out, only the old-timers stayed behind. Dr. Embridge rubbed the side of his nose and said, "How do you keep them going?" "Well," said Dr. Chagrin, "I'll tell you. A long time ago, I discovered that old folks are just like anyone else. They like to be entertained. So I learned a few tricks." The two men sat down next to the fireplace, and Dr. Chagrin told the following story. "The first time I walked into the old folks' hospital ward, it was as quiet as night. No one talked. No one smiled. No one even noticed me. I knew that something had to be done. Now, my granddaddy was a magician, and he taught me that magic is like poetry. For a brief moment, it transforms the world and makes it appear as wonderful as it really is. So the next day, I showed up at the hospital in 3 hats. See these hats, I said, holding them up one at a time. You can see for yourself that there's nothing in them. And I turned each hat upside down and shook it. Pretty soon, all the old folks were propping up their pillows and watching me. Then I set the hats down in a row on a table. Bending over the first hat, I said, 'Abracadabra,' and pulled out a white rabbit, which I set loose on the floor. Bending over the second hat, I said, 'Shazam!' and pulled out a frog, which I set loose on the floor. Bending over the third hat, I said, 'Fee-fi-diddly-dee,' and pulled out a bird, which I set loose in the air. Before you could say 'kick the can,' the whole place was laughing and yelling, chasing the animals, and trying to catch the bird. After that day, everyone knew my name. Whenever I'd come into the old folks' ward, the patients would shout, 'Perform for us, Jerry. Do a trick. Please, Jerry.' And I would, because when people have something to look forward to, they move ahead and improve." Dr. Chagrin stretched his legs and rubbed his hands in front of the fire. "That's the end of my story," he said. Dr. Embridge was silent. Then, after a long pause, he said, "I wish I knew how to do tricks. I wish, Dr. Chagrin, you'd teach me so that I can take care of the old folks." "Of course I'll teach you," replied the old doctor. "I'll teach you how to do Jerry hat tricks." So, whenever a doctor specializes in the care of elderly people, think of Dr. Chagrin and his Jerry hat tricks, and you will remember the word Geriatrics. Thank you for joining me.